Behind a large house on the Colorado mountainside, smoke rises from a smoker operated by a man with Chuckie's Smokehouse on the back of his jersey. Suddenly, a woman breaks out onto the deck, pointing at me, and says,
"You can't say Big Bird died on the podcast. Someone's going to be listening to it with their kid in the room." And then
The question, Jeff, do you find it a little ironic that Big Bird died and on the last podcast, Serena was talking that her husband was going to smoke a bird?
it was a turkey.
Serena, how did that Big Bird turn out?
They always come out super good.
Really?
It turned out big.
You know what? It was, because did I tell you he bought a 19-pound turkey instead of a 14-pound by accident?
Was it yellow?
Because he dyslexicked it. But it was so funny. So we have some vegans in our family, and the turkey was sitting on the counter just like getting ready to get carved, and the vegan was like, "That turkey looks really good." And we're like,
I can see a picture of the smoker. Ira, can you describe this to me? The lid's closed, but there's two long legs sticking out one side and this yellow head out the other side.
Oh my goodness. Focus. Someone didn't take their Adderall today.
Welcome to That Blind Tech Show. And in this corner, we have Brian Fisher. He's from New York State. And in the other corner, up on the mountain, we got Serena Gilbert. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing good. I don't like being introduced. This is weird. I don't know what to say. Now I know how you guys feel.
I know. It catches you off guard. I didn't even call you out. I just, how you guys doing? And actually, it's a guy and a gal. Serena, how are you doing?
And how rude am I? I spoke before her.
Well, you're already walking
first.
over all of us, so what the heck?
Hey, it's 2020.
And we're back.
Men first.
What, 2020? Yeah. What do you think it's going to take this long to edit this one?
I never know, what kind of magic goes on behind the scenes. I'm still trying to get over the smoke bird thing.
I can't tell if you're doing that on purpose or if your internet is all crappy again.
No, that's Brian. He's from New York.
Yeah, we just got 56 baud over here.
There you go. Dial up modem.
Oh God. Are you two sharing a brain today?
No, but 10 cells would be better than 5. Right, Brian?
So, Serena, how did the Yahoo Fantasy Football work out for you?
I don't even know. I'm pretty sure I lost.
No, I lost. I made the playoffs, but then I lost.
I lost the losers bracket.
Well, hey, I'm with you, though. We got the bleachers now for the rest of the season.
At least you made the playoffs.
I'm like Gloria Gaynor.
You will survive. You really did just deserve to be able to have the opportunity, though, Brian. Like, you literally had the roughest season ever, just like as far as luck goes with whoever you played that each week.
Pardon the pun. Are you Luck? Andrew Luck? That's how it started.
That was day one, wasn't it?
That was day one.
Hey, but you didn't have Antonio Brown, so.
No, I did.
So, Jeff,
Exactly.
That was a 9th round pick, though, folks.
Well, to make things worse, Serena, I had Antonio Brown in my 2 most expensive money leagues. But, if I win first place, I win $2,500.
That's a lot. You gonna report that on your taxes?
No, because I won't get it till next year. So, and then I'll probably put it back into fantasy.
Pete Lane listens to this, and he worked for the IRS. I'd keep it down a little bit, Brian.
Oh,
yeah. Well, that covers fantasy football, folks. Moving on.
How about we actually start recording the show?
Yeah.
I thought that was a great opening, folks.
Because someone is tired over here. I know I'm the one in the earliest time zone, but I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brian. I won't use any of that.
What's that?
3, 2, 1 us.
Okay.
You're nowhere near your microphone.
I know.
I just moved over a little.
It's like you just took 10 feet back and then we're like, all right, let's go.
I think of the headless horseman. His head just rolls this way or goes over that way.
I am 3 fingers from the microphone.
Are you on a horse crossing a bridge by chance?
No, why?
Ichabod.
Is there a pumpkin near you?
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of that, not only is Big Bird right down the street, but 20 miles from me is Sleepy Hollow, New York.
Ooh. Let's start it out with Halloween. It's timely, isn't it?
Oh, totally.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to another episode of That Blind Tech Show. With me, as always, I guess, or almost as always, Serena Gilbert. How you doing today, Serena?
Only almost always?
Almost always.
Really?
Almost. Wow. Ouch.
Yeah, when you guys, try to forget about me and...
Who?
Yeah, exactly. Now...
Don't you forget about me. I'm singing already.
Oh,
Forget
who sings that?
about me.
Simple Minds.
But the Breakfast Club, remember the ending?
Yes, great
That's
movie.
not a band. That's a movie.
No, but that's the song. The theme
I
song
know.
is Don't
Connected.
You Forget.
But
Connection. Let's get
old
some
man
connection.
over there, I said, who sings this? And he's all the Breakfast Club.
I thought you were going to say who sings it.
Serena,
Let's keep it that way.
Forget about
Anyway,
me.
take two. Serena, how was your Thanksgiving? How are you doing this lovely day, evening, depending on where you're located?
It was great. And Brian, you asked me earlier off air if we did, in fact, smoke a turkey, and we did, and a ham. And then it was delicious.
But what about a bird?
Nope, no yellow birds.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
Suspicious.
Very suspicious.
Who's this person talking over here, Brian? Who's this? other person?
That would be Jeffrey Thompson, who you're hearing out of my left ear. How you doing this evening/day, Jeff?
It's 17 below wind chill here in Minnesota. I'm frigid.
And we're recording this in July. Is it really already 17 below? And you're talking Fahrenheit for our listeners not in the United States, correct?
Wind chill. It's actually a negative degree, 6 below, but with the wind factored in, they consider that if you produce heat like a mammal does, then it feels like it's 17 below. Little science lessons there for Serena.
I stopped listening. I lost interest, you know. So I was
This
told
is
there'd
why
be
I
no
don't live
math.
there.
Yeah. So I was told there'd
No,
be no
thank you.
math on the podcast. Obviously, we broke that rule. But if you're like us and everybody else in the rest of the world, you probably didn't pay attention that Apple had an event on December 3rd. Did either of you listen to Apple's app event on December 3rd?
I took about 12 seconds and I caught the whole thing.
Well, why don't you tell the listeners what they may have discussed, because I still haven't listened to 12 seconds of it.
They basically just honored a few people in the app departments, just gave them recognition. I don't know. It's kind of like one of the Hollywood awards shows, which one, right?
Yeah, exactly. They don't have enough of those.
Did they do the music awards that same event, or was that a separate event?
I have no idea. 12 seconds, I couldn't take it all in, but I thought I did.
It was here in New York
'Cause I
City, I
know
know
that-
that much, but I was in Florida, so I did not get to go. And
Wait, what, Serena?
Well, I was going to say, I know that Billie Eilish won, Artist of the Year. Do you guys know who she is?
not Billy Idol?
No.
No, Eilish.
Eilish?
Eylish.
Totally different person.
Oh, okay.
Haven't you heard Bad Guy?
No. Does he sing "Don't You Forget About Me"?
It's not
No,
even a
Billy.
boy.
Billy's a girl.
Oh, well, people shouldn't give people confusing names. That could be either or.
Oh, how out of touch with the world are you? I know you've heard this song.
Extremely out of touch and glad to be.
You've definitely heard
I've
this song.
never heard of Billie
You've
Eilish.
heard this song and you probably just don't realize that that's who you've heard.
I haven't listened to the radio since 1956, so
Brian,
I wasn't even born yet.
You weren't even born yet. From Minneapolis, there's a uprising artist that won an award too.
Who?
She has one name.
Lizzo.
Lizzo,
Sure.
yeah.
Madonna.
No, Lizzo.
Who or what is a Lizzo?
You've heard the Lizzo song too. Oh my goodness. When we get off air and won't get sued for playing music on the podcast that we don't have the copyrights to, we will play you a Lizzo song and a Billie Eilish song. And I guarantee you will have heard
Billy
them.
Idol? Can we play Don't Forget?
No,
Sorry.
no. We will play you.
That's the music I like, though.
We need to enlighten you.
Hey, were we doing a show today?
I think we were. I'm trying to get it back on track. If you would stop talking about made-up names of musicians just to mess with me.
You think we're making these names up?
I think it's about 60-40.
I think you need
60-40 that
to
you're
tell
making
the
up.
Twitterverse to tweet you some videos of Billie Eilish and Lizzo.
I heard both of them today. And Halsey. Halsey's
Halsey's
new song
my
just came out.
favorite.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
The
I love
album's
her.
Is
not
this a
released
music
yet.
podcast or a tech podcast?
Both.
Brian, go play with your TiVo because you're just as dated as that according to this music.
I am, so yeah.
Anyways,
Yeah, whatever.
we were going to do a show.
We were. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled programming. So anyway, Apple was talking about apps, and I thought this would be a good time for all of us to kind of talk about our favorite apps. Serena, you did the homework, I'm sure, for the show, and you spent hours upon hours while listening to Billy Idol or Eilish. What are your 2 to 3 favorite apps on your iPhone as we close 2019, sorry.
Favorite or most used?
Most used.
So Facebook's number one because I'm a social butterfly.
Oh, I like that.
Do you like that? I came up with that right this second. I'm super proud.
Social butterfly, not a unique little snowflake. I've learned that in 2019.
Did you put that in your routine yet?
I did. You wouldn't have liked it though. It was R-rated.
Do you know she's so good at social media that when she flutters her butterfly wings, ripples can be felt in Malaysia.
Did you say
I've
felt
heard that.
in Malaysia?
Ripples can be felt in
Felt?
Malaysia.
Felt.
Felt.
Felt. Isn't felt the stuff that's on a pool table?
Oh my goodness, you guys. My number 2 app is actually Envision AI. I used to be Seeing AI, but Envision AI I think is head and shoulders above Seeing AI in accuracy and ease of use, and it's only like $2 a month now, so I don't think that's too bad for a pretty reliable app. But my number 3 app would actually be Audible. They've done a lot of accessibility improvements.
How's the accessibility of Audible these days?
It's amazing. I don't have any problems with it. Now they've actually updated it where you can use your credits in the app instead of having to go to the website to purchase the book, quote unquote, with your credit and then have it sent to the app. You can do it right in the app now. It's super easy. And I think that the recordings are better quality than what you get on Bard or, the Library of Congress. I think it's well worth the monthly subscription.
That's great to hear. Yeah, I haven't used the Audible in several years. Jeff Thompson, you use a iDevice. What are your 2 to 3 most used apps?
It comes down to WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter for sure. And I think the difference between Serena and I is she's more Facebook, less Twitter. I'm more Twitter, less Facebook, but I'm getting better at it. And, that is 3, but the other ones that I do use is the news app and the native podcast app. I use that a lot. So there's 5 for you folks right there.
I have a question, Jeff, because I've been using the native podcast app too. And I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or what, but my podcast app will sometimes send me notifications when a new podcast is available, and sometimes it won't for no apparent reason. And there's no notifications are turned on. It's not set to deliver silently. It makes no sense.
Right. And I've noticed that a lot. So I do have this other app called Swoot. And it's just a random one. And their notifications work really good, but I never open up the Swoot app. So I get the notification so I know it's in the podcast. But I do open up the podcast app every night just to see what came out of the ones that I've chosen in there. So that doesn't bother me. But you're right. There are some glitches with it in that notification area.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny because I kind of do the same thing. I get my notifications from Twitter, but use Twitterific. I kind of do that the same way and everything. I am not a big Twitterer or tweeter.
What?
My number 1 app that I probably use 9 months out of the year is definitely got to be Yahoo Fantasy. Big fan of that. I know the 3 of us had a lot of fun in the Yahoo Fantasy Football League, even though Jeff got eliminated from the playoffs this weekend, but I am still alive, so I made the final. I want to say the TiVo app because I know how much you two love TiVo. Lyre is another app that I absolutely love to follow a lot of news. I guess I'm old school where I like the RSS feeds, so I'd have to say Lyre. And Downcast is probably my number 3. I still love Downcast. I know a lot of people have moved on to other podcast players, but Downcast is working again great these days, and I love being able to have folders and put everything in the different topics that I'm listening to. Those are all some great apps, and I like that we all didn't have the same apps that we use and everything.
I do really like Lyre. That is actually a really good RSS reader. I've been using that for years and years and years. It's the best one I've ever had, actually.
What are you using these days? I know you're probably using Amazon, so we don't need to go into that. Do you pay your bills on the iPhone? Do you pay your credit card on the iPhone? Or are you using websites these days?
So my number 1 shopping app right now is actually the Target app. It is super duper easy. You can do Apple Pay in it, but we have the Target debit card where you get 5% off and some shipping bonuses and things like that.
Yay. Yay.
Of course. And
is that a pro Minnesota thing, Jeff?
Yeah, because Target's that's where their headquarters is. Our Target just started doing the drive-up service, which we did last week, or no, the weekend of Black Friday. We didn't want to go in, but we needed laundry pods. So I just ordered them on the app and we did the drive-up. It was really cool. In the app, it tells you to tell them when you're on your way. So I just pushed the button and was like, I'm on my way. And then it was like, all right, when you get there, let us know. But I was watching the app as we pulled in the parking lot and it knew we were there and was like, all right, we'll bring your stuff out shortly. And sure enough, about 3 minutes later, the Target team member brought it out to our car. My husband just handed the phone to him. They scanned the barcode and we were on our way. It's super accessible. And I think it integrates with Shipt, SHIPT.
That I know.
To get home delivery.
So in other words, that's a good example of good location tracking.
Yes.
Well, that's pretty cool. I've never used the Target. I think we have Target here in New York and everything, but I've never used that.
Oh, I'm sure you do. You have everything. It's the easiest app. I think it's more accessible than the Amazon app.
Their location tracking is right on target.
That one I got, Jeff.
Someone was going to say it. You knew. Because it was that cheesy. And in our marriage, my husband does all the financial payments and things like that, and we do it all on a website. We don't do I'll access the bank accounts to do like transfers and little things like that. But as far as our major bill paying, we do it on the websites.
Yeah, maybe one day these banks will make it possible where us blind people could actually take a photo of a check to deposit it, so I don't have to walk in the freezing rain to the bank.
Oh yeah, that's going to be a pain.
Jeff, how about yourself? Obviously, Target is probably one of your favorite shopping apps. What are you using shopping payment-wise these days?
I did use the Apple Card, and it was really interesting when I was up in Toronto. They don't have the card up there yet. So when I was at the Apple store in Toronto, the person looked at the card and said, "Oh, wow, I've never seen one of those yet." I said, "It's from Apple." They go, "I know, but we don't have it up here yet." So he called the manager over and they go, "Oh, all right."
Were they all in awe of the card?
Well, they kept like dropping it from about a quarter of an inch up so it would tink, the titanium. It was just, they were just so giddy. And then he gave a demonstration to the employee right there that they went for the chip, but then they did the swipe and the swipe worked. So they ended it there. But yeah, and they all kind of held it. It was kind of neat. And so every place I went, I pulled out the Apple Card just because all of them were like, "Oh, wow,
You're the one.
That was really cool."
They probably thought you were a celebrity.
I'm Jeff Thompson.
Why were you buying in Canada? Aren't they more expensive up there than the United States?
Well, it's kind of a surprise. See, Nick had these wired earbuds, and he'd have to hold one side once in a while when it would clunk out. So I thought I'd surprise him. I picked them up, and that's when I used the card.
What a guy, this Jeff Thompson.
Hey, for people I like, Brian, I'm pretty nice to.
You never bought me anything.
Like I said,
I'm just going to be real quiet over here.
I do like the Amazon card because you gain some points in it, but now Apple is starting to rally that because I'm gaining, gainful dollars or whatever they want to call it. I get these points and stuff like that. And just today on the Apple card, they came out with the 6%, December 21st or the 31st, one of those two, but you can get 6% cash back. And you also have available to you interest-free, automatically set up. So going through the first party, you buy an iPhone and your $24 payments a month will be deducted automatically right through your credit card system through Apple. So that's kind of neat that they have that. And they're going to start including, like, say you buy a phone and then you get Apple Care, and then you say you want to get so much storage and all that stuff. So they'll be able to line itemize that and just sock it right in there. Just charge more money to your card, basically. But it's a neat feature that they have.
That doesn't even come close to the Amazon card, though. They were doing 10% cash back on Cyber Monday.
Yeah. I mean, but
crazy.
They're doing it till the 31st. So
yeah,
plus interest-free, no hassle, 24-month loan, just bang, I mean, once you have the card, you can get that loan on your devices. So I think a lot of people are going to take advantage of that, getting the new iPhone 11 Pro or something like that.
So if I buy a Mac Pro, I could get $300 back at that $50,000 price tag.
Well, no, you'd get a lot more than that back.
I don't think you did your math right there, Brian.
3,000, pardon me. 6%?
Brian, you said there was going to be no math.
I know. And I'm congested, too. Yeah, I don't do a lot of shopping outside of Amazon because it's just so easy here in New York. Anything where I don't have to leave the apartment. Target, I'd actually have to go find us. One thing I do love is Chase, who the Amazon card is through. The accessibility of that app is tremendous. I also got this year, I got the JetBlue Plus card because I'm starting to bank up all the miles because I'll be flying to CSUN for free. But Barclays, who issues that credit card, not so great on the accessibility. It is doable. There's a couple workarounds you got to figure out. So unfortunately, not all the banking issuers are as great as the Apple card and Chase and everything. So just some food for thought. We wanted to go through some of the apps that we're using since Apple was talking about apps. And now we're going to bring in a fourth guest who you've heard on the show a couple times. You've heard him on...
Wait, a fourth guest?
Okay.
Did you not know, Jeff? Are you being surprised?
Well, no, I thought he was going to try and use Fortnite as well in this podcast.
So now we're going to bring in a very special guest to join the three of us. You've heard him on Blind Abilities. You've heard him on That Blind Tech Show. He's doing great work. If you haven't heard the previous interviews, this one we discussed some new things. We discussed what's going to be coming up in 2020. So definitely go back and check out those interviews on Blind Abilities and That Blind Tech Show. Mr. Roy Samuelson.
Roy Samuelson, thanks for coming on the That Blind Tech Show. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and with us is Serena Gilbert. Serena?
Hi, Jeff. Hi, my favorite person, Roy.
And we got Brian Fisher. Brian?
Roy, great to be back on with you. Thrilled to have you back here on That Blind Tech Show.
It's great to be here.
Thanks. We already established that. So,
Oh, yeah, I just say it again because I feel so good and smiley.
just for our listeners that may be listening in a time capsule, we're getting ready to approach 2020. We're seeing an explosion of video, audio description everywhere. Wanted to know, have you noticed that your services are more in demand as we approach 2020?
Yeah, it's incredible that I think on the audio description project recently, they crossed into 3,400 unique audio description projects. That's film and TV shows. And I can't tell you how excited it is to be able to see that, especially with some of the streaming services that came out that provide audio description out the gate. And not only just audio description, but Apple TV Plus included multiple languages of audio description. I think what that's telling me is that this audio description is now being recognized by companies, not solely as just a requirement, but also an opportunity to bring the visual elements to our blind and low vision audiences in a way that that they recognize. I've seen numbers before where it's 27 million blind and low vision Americans, and be able to see those potential and existing audience members reached, and also, some of our sighted audiences that also appreciate audio description. This is definitely feeling like something that's happening. And as far as my experience goes, we're at a different place where there's not just 3 different TV stations and a few major budget studios that are coming out with features. We've got hundreds of choices on cable, and now it seems like thousands of choices that are in the streaming services. And each of them are bringing some real quality content with their offerings, the episodics, and even some of their features. So it kind of makes sense that audio description is going to follow that in the same way that audio description maybe a few years ago was the conversation felt like it was limited to, does it have it or does it not have audio description? But now we're starting to distinguish, oh, okay, well, it has it. Let's take that as a given in most cases. And with that given audio description, is it being provided in a way that provides quality and excellence? And we can get into the details of that later.
It's funny that you mentioned, does it have it or does it not have it? Because on the other side, for the blind end user, it's in some cases, well, how do you turn it on to get the audio
And that
description
gets
track?
into the accessibility. And you talked about, the quality. And we heard that Brian went through the list of, 600 list of awards.
The Golden Globe nominations that just dropped, the 600 categories, but not one for audio description. We need that.
Not yet.
Maybe in the future.
Yes, I was nominated for a SOVAS Award. That's the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences. And it's the first time that I understand that the voiceover community has recognized audio description narration in their awards. And that was
nice.
A huge honor to be surrounded by
That's
those
fantastic.
other credible audio description narrators. There are some things that are happening in that. I had to jump in with that because that was really exciting.
Well, congratulations on that. That's a step in the right direction.
It sure is.
With all these streaming coming out and Disney getting involved, if they start backlogging, you got work for next 132 years.
It's incredible how much they already provided, and being able to see Disney Plus come out with so much of their original Disney content with audio description. I was so moved that that was happening, because it tells me 2 things. Like I said earlier, that they're recognizing the value, and also that out the gate, our audiences were able to appreciate this without having to wait a few weeks or trying to say, hey, and obviously there's still a few glitches there. There was glitches even for some of the other projects outside of audio description. But overall, this was a huge win.
Roy, do you happen to know if they went back and described some of the original, like really older Disney movies like Snow White and Cinderella? Because those even have audio description. I'm just guessing that maybe they weren't original audio description tracks.
That's true. And I can't imagine the work that was put into it. On the Facebook group, Audio Description Discussion, there's been a few comments, especially towards the end of November, early December, that had to do with that. There was some specific comments about how they did either find the original audio description, or if they couldn't find it, that they redid it. Those titles were grandfathered in, so to speak. But I can only imagine that any new original content that comes out from this point forward, that system is now in place, the system whereby audio description is included in the original series or the feature, so that we can experience it as it comes out and as it ends up on these streaming services.
It's nice that you're put onto the timeline.
Oh, yes. Yes, it really is. And that's part of inclusion too, right?
Yeah, and I'm curious, I don't know how much interaction you get to have with any of the executives over there, if it's just Roy comes in, sits down, reads his script, but Disney and obviously Paramount has done a phenomenal job going back and putting audio description to some of their classic titles. Any idea how we as a community might be able to reach out to the other studios, Universal, Warner Brothers, to potentially get them to go back and put some audio description and give you some work for some of their classic titles that have not had audio description?
I'll do my best to address that. I think the most important thing from my very limited perspective is that, yeah, you're right. I get scheduled. I come in, I do a narration, and that's it. I am reaching out to executives. I'm part of the TV Academy, the Emmy Awards. And so I'm meeting producers who, when they hear about audio description, I think I've told you before that those that don't know about it lean in and are like, wait, you mean that we can reach our blind and low vision audiences? I'm like, yes, you can. Let's talk more. So there is an active engagement, and there's a genuine interest in the education that those creative types are into it. To answer your question, I really don't, as a narrator, have influence over this. However, like you said, there is a template already established by some audience members where they do reach out and they say, hey, we want this title described. And I've witnessed it. I think the Dark Crystal series came out on Netflix, and there were some audience members that said, hey, we want the audio description for the original Dark Crystal movie. And I'd say within a few weeks to a month, it was there. And it had to do with people speaking up and saying, we want this, we want this. I'm part of the Audio Description Narrators of America. The website is theadna.org. So the Audio Description Narrators of America.org. And what we're trying to do is connect our audio description narrators with the titles. And we just added an extra page it's definitely in progress, but it allows people to say, anytime I stumble across someone saying, oh, I want this title audio described, or I want this series audio described. Breaking Bad has come up a few times.
Yeah.
I'm putting that up on this website so that people can say, oh, if you're looking for stuff, here's some stuff that's been in the ether. But that website isn't going to do it by itself. It's people speaking up and saying, we care, we want this, we want to experience this with audio description. I think that template of the Dark Crystal being made so quickly that our audiences that are speaking up are being heard, and their voice does make a difference. I think that's one of the most exciting things that's happened in the last year or so.
Yeah, I used to have all the movies on VHS, the classics that I love, The Godfather, those kind of films. Then I had everything on DVD, and while I was building my DVD collection is when I went totally blind. Well, now I'm building everything digitally, but I only buy it through the iTunes store if it has that described video track. So it's great. Like I said, when I saw Paramount, I just got 7 the other day, and I can't imagine when 7 was originally released that it had an audio description track. Yeah, that's going to spook me out. Yeah, late 90s. I want to say 98. Yeah, that's got to be a little creepy. I'm to hear that audio description track.
You mean you didn't get
Criminal Minds? I know, creepy.
So you mean, Brian, you didn't pick up Clueless?
I was a fan of Clueless. I was living in LA when it came out and everything, but I have not gotten Clueless. I was not. Roy, I was an extra on Beverly Hills 90210. Unfortunately, it was not renewed, the little series there. But that had audio description. It didn't tell us what the actors look like nowadays and everything, but I heard they aged fairly well.
Hey, Roy, we reached out to some of our listeners from not just across the United States, but around the world. We got Nick D'Ambrosio from Canada and Chi Chow from Malaysia asking you kind of the same question, but in a different way.
My question will be, how much emotion do you put in there? Or how much you do not put in there? I think it's a very tricky thing to do. At least for me personally, if that person is too emotional, he just fell into something, or he just ran away, something. I think it's if it's too emotional, then it will kind of disturb your concentration or your emotion when you're watching the movie itself. I don't know. If it's too emotionless, then it's not a nice experience too.
Hey, Roy, really great listening to you on Blind Abilities and all the great work you do on the described audio. I have a quick little question. I know that you read the scripts and that you kind of know what is going on in the movie, but I just wanted to know, how do you stay neutral? Because in a lot of movies, there's a lot of exciting things, sad moments. It's remarkable how a lot of the people who do narration really have to block out any type of emotion to kind of stay into the script. If you can answer that, that'd be awesome. Thanks a lot.
Oh, thanks, Jeff. And thanks, Chi Chow and Nick, for asking. It's very important to me as a voice actor. even as a narrator, I am bringing really clear intentions in the emotion of what I do with audio description. You all have a choice to be listening to a Siri voice or a Alexa voice or a flat monotone, just flat read. My understanding is that most audiences, especially for films that have any kind of emotional content or suspense or some sort of feeling behind it, that kind of hasn't gotten to the point where it's satisfying yet. Most of my training as a voice talent has been about intentions and acting. I've taken a lot of acting classes and improv classes, as well as a lot of voiceover classes. And one of the most important things is that we, as the character that we're playing, have intentions. Where are we coming from and who are we talking to? And in most of my reads, I imagine someone that I respect that I'm speaking with. So I want to make sure that if I could give an example, a sing-songy voice where someone puts the table and moves over to it, that reads like, to me, it comes across as insulting. It's speaking down to our audience. And so I want to make sure that I bring that intention. To specifically answer the question about the emotion, let's use a scale of 1 to 10, where a 1 scale is the emotion of that digitized voice that anybody can listen to when they turn on their smartphone and listen to whatever it's speaking, usually at like 50% faster than what you're used to, because you can comprehend it and make it do what you need. You got the information. And a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10 would be the emotional buddy next to you that is screaming at the TV, shouting all the bad football plays that are happening, where they're so animated, they're jumping up and they're clapping and they're swearing or whatever else they're doing on top of that emotion that they're so charged up. When I bring audio description narration, I try to find that sweet spot, which is anywhere between 4 and 7. Let's say 4 and 6. That there is that very neutral read that I bring. But if something suspenseful is happening, or if there's a beautiful moment, or if there's a heartfelt moment, or something that's unexpected or scary, that I kind of gently nudge it just a little bit more towards that intention, so that if someone is passing away, it's not, she dies in her arms, where I say it with a smile. That there is a heartfelt sadness that comes out, but it's very subtle. Every audio description script that I get, I feel like I am walking a tightrope where I'm trying to find that perfect balance. And with that perfect balance, I feel as a narrator, it's my responsibility to think about the audience in a way that they're going to experience this scene and the emotional arc of this scene in a way that I'm not stepping in the way of it. That if you as an audience member are noticing me and thinking, oh, wow, Roy's such a great narrator, I didn't serve the scene. I didn't serve the intention. And at the same time, if I'm too into it and it's like, oh, that Roy, he sure knows how to read, it's, that's going to be too much too. So I'm always attempting to find that sweet spot. In some of the audio description that I've produced myself, I've invited a blind audience member who's experienced with audio description to listen along to the entire recording, just to make sure that we're on the same page, and not only that the content's there, but the emotional element is in that sweet spot for them, that they can help give me the feedback of, yeah, this works or this doesn't. And even when I'm teaching audio description to other voice talents, that is something where, I also bring in an audience member who's blind, that's able to give the feedback to the students right away, to be able to ride that emotional arc. It may sound neutral, but my intention behind that neutrality is to give it just enough so that you can fully disappear into the scene emotionally.
Yeah, it's interesting. What I was noticing there when you were responding was it's different, but in a way it's kind of like stand-up comedy, because when I perform, I know what I'm going to say, but 1, it can't come across too rehearsed, and 2, it needs to come off natural. So when you were talking about how you don't want it to come across like you're reading, it really is quite a performance that you are doing.
That's such a great comparison with stand-up. I have so much respect for you and anyone that does stand-up, because
if you knew me, you wouldn't respect me. Sorry, go ahead.
Look at that. That's the stand-up coming out right there. Let me say that the craft that you bring to stand-up is that thing. It's got to sound like it's off the cuff, but I can't imagine the work that you put in for the timing, the way that you put the words together. And I assume that every time that you're in front of the audience, you get a different kind of response. And it's like, oh, this always works, or maybe this works half the time, or maybe I could tweak this a little bit. That you're doing that nuance as a stand-up comedian. And I would hasten to say that I could ever compare myself to that, because I took a stand-up class, and my gosh, that was challenging.
And don't forget this one should be working. It's funny. Why doesn't anybody here think it's funny?
Sure.
What's wrong with this audience?
It could be the audience too. That's right.
Yeah, it's always the audience.
Roy, we got another question, and this one comes from Jacksonville, Florida, Mr. Pete Lane.
Yeah, hi, Jeff and Roy. Roy, I want to compliment you on all you've been doing in the audio description arena, and particularly what you've been doing in your advocacy efforts for blind and visually impaired viewers. keeping us in the loop and advocating amongst all of the other interested parties in the audio description business. My question is twofold. Have you seen an uptick in the number of audio describers, and how does that impact you, and how will that impact us down the road? And secondly, for those of us who have sighted family members or friends who might be interested in looking into becoming an audio describer, whether it be in media, TV, radio, movies, talking books, audiobooks, things along those lines, how would you recommend that somebody get their feet wet, or at least look into the possibilities, the potential for becoming a professional audio describer like yourself? And once again, Roy, thanks a million for all you're doing. Keep up the good work. This is Pete Lane, by the way. Take care, guys.
Very great. Thanks, Pete. Those are some great questions. Part one, when it comes to the uptick, that's I'm sure you've noticed that as we talked about, the audio description project has so many titles that are listed. My hope is that we get to the point where they're only listing the shows that don't have audio description, that we get to that tipping point where it's just those few outliers that don't have it. And hopefully they're like, oh, we want to get on board. We recognize the value of this. As far as the different vendors that provide it, I'm not aware of all of them, but predominantly in the United States, specifically Los Angeles and New York, there are vendors that provide audio description. And what I'm noticing is that there is much more work that's coming out. And where I believe these companies can start to distinguish themselves is to provide a level of quality and excellence that will rise to the standards that all audiences expect and enjoy. And that is happening. I'm not saying that they're not doing that, but we're not at that point where it's just, let's just knock out some audio description and make sure we have it. It's that extra element that people care about. And when I recognize that a vendor is saying, we really care about this and we want to make sure we get it right, that get it right is there is so much behind the scenes with what that means. We've talked about the narration side. There's the core of everything is the writing, and how the writers make the decision what they're going to share visually that's most important for the scene, that's gonna not get in the way. So that's a huge project. There's the mix level, the mastering. So in other words, how loud or how soft the narrator is that goes along with the ride of the existing audio. Obviously, we talked about access, like how easy is it to turn it on or have it on all the time or switch it on, and is it released at the same time? Is this something that's out there? So there is definitely an uptick. And with all these different elements, I think there's some real smart ways that people can recognize that there's money being left on the table that they can pick up because our audiences care about this work. And when they recognize quality work, they're going to take it. So there's so many great opportunities for audio description narrators, for voiceover talents to start right now, that most people have a smartphone with a voice memos app. One of the things that I found when I began, listening to my voice sounds weird, in the same way that if you think back many years when people were leaving voicemail greetings, they'd say their name and call this number at the beep, whatever. And then when they played it back, it was almost universal that everyone was like, who is that? Who's that voice? Because it's our own voice we hear from inside our own body. That everybody else hears our voice from outside our body, obviously. So the first time that you hear your voice outside your body, you're like, wait a second, who is that? And so getting used to your voice and what it sounds like. And then the next element is how you think you sound and how it comes across. In the same way that you can record, open up a greeting card from a relative or a friend, or look at some magazine that has some copy and read it out loud and record it and listen back and see if you do what you thought you did. That there's this little adjustment that happens where you think you might sound one way, but it's actually something else. So that's something that you can start off right out the gate. As for people that have a stronger interest in voiceover, I think it's really important. I call myself a voice actor. And part of that is that my training has been in acting and bringing intention and being able to be the character, whether it's a narrator or an animated character or whatever it is. That training in acting, play acting, being in plays or on camera acting, whatever it is, that feeds what I do as a voice talent. Also, improv classes, those are essential. I have not met any qualified teacher or professional voice talent that hasn't spoken so highly about improv. That, as strange as that sounds, an improv class is a great way to get started in getting a solid foundation of the acting that will definitely come in handy with voiceover. As far as doing things with voiceover, I understand there's a website called youdescribe.com. That's youdescribe.com. And there's a treasure trove of YouTube videos that our audiences have asked to have audio description with. And I think it's required to have a Chrome browser on a laptop. Basically, here's this opportunity where people can jump right in and start describing existing video content. And it's content that people want. And it's a great training ground. You can get feedback and see how people respond. Finally, I think it's super important that anybody, no matter what their interest is, that they respond to the audiences on their social media, that if there is an image that you want to share on Instagram or Twitter, or you're forwarding in a link that has an image, that you take that extra 1 or 2 seconds to describe it in the alt text, that here's an image that means something to you. It's important enough for you to hit post. Before you hit post, click on additional settings, or I think it's called additional setting. There's some sort of setting just before you post that you can click on, and you can fill in the alt text. It's a great way to start practicing audio description for one image that means enough for you to share. So that now we're starting to talk about inclusion in a way, for example, a sighted person can use instantly to start learning about how audio description works. What is this visual element that I'm trying to give a brushstroke at? And for our blind and low vision talents, there's so many different opportunities there to do voiceover work that I've worked with and hired audio description. Not audio description. I've hired narrators before through casting, and it's been a similar experience. So there's really fewer barriers when it comes to the experience of doing this work. And it's anything that I can do to encourage anyone that's interested in it. I really feel it's important to bring the quality and the excellence, and that you take the time to research what that means and where your best fit is.
Great question, Pete. Thank you for the question. Great answer, Roy.
So, Roy, we've all heard about actors losing certain parts to other actors and everything. Very commonplace. You'll hear about it years later, and you don't have to mention anybody by name. Do you have a audio describer or voice actor nemesis that you've lost projects to?
I'm sure it happens all the time. I might not even know about it. There's some projects that, boy, I really want to be a good fit on. And for example, I get a lot of horror films and a lot of action adventure, and I'm really well suited for that. And there's also some opportunities that people have given me outside the box that I've had a great time doing. One of the things that's really important to me is having my mom be able to go to the movie theaters and watch something where someone's not getting shot, swearing, or being killed. And that's something that is going to happen at some point. I look forward to the opportunity when I can do that. And so it's not so much the nemesis against another narrator. I've found that the narrators I talk to, once we do connect, that there is a real care and an interest in those that are working regularly in making sure that they preserve the best that they can. And I've enjoyed connecting with those narrators. So when it comes to the competition, it's less about against them or they beat me, but did I bring my best work? That I'm competing against myself in a way that, okay, so here's how I did this. Today I worked on an episodic that's going to be coming out next year in 2020. And I was thinking back as I was leaving the studio, I'm like, oh yeah, so I did this last time that I wanted to kind of nudge this. So I'm playing around with timing. I'm playing around with speed and how I can best communicate the storyline. And so the competition is definitely against, am I better today than where I was yesterday? And I have to be able to answer that question, yes. That I need to keep on improving, because obviously if I'm not improving, then I'm going to get, lazy isn't the right word, but I'm not going to be as useful.
Yeah. And that's great advice for any job that you do, that you want to be better today than you were yesterday. And am I correct? Are you doing the narration for Prodigal Son? Is that your voice?
No, it isn't.
It is not. I thought that was you. I do apologize. Jeff, cut that out.
Oh, that's quite all right. That's great that I'm so glad that it has it.
Yeah, because you were doing Lethal Weapon, right?
I was.
Yeah. So I thought I was like, and interestingly enough, as I said to Jeff, it doesn't tell you who does the audio description, but I did notice on the last episode, the only opening credit they mentioned was the name of the show, so I couldn't really blame them too much. Yeah.
My wife just started watching this series. Her mom called her up and she started watching it, and I turned it on for her, and I was watching something, so I just clicked over to it. And as I walked away, I heard the audio description. It's about a movie that seems like it's dated in the 50s or something. It's something, I forget what it is.
Is it Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
That's it. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's an Amazon show.
But I heard the voice and I go, is that Roy?
We asked that a lot. Is that Roy?
I'm honored.
It's funny
for sure.
that you say that because Roy, remember when I came back from watching Angry Birds and I texted you and I was like, was that you? And you were like, no.
We're all projecting it's Roy.
Yeah, it's Roy.
Don't ruin it for us, Roy.
So you're saying there's more than one person that does audio description besides yourself?
Well, the cool thing is, in all seriousness, that as more voice talents get into this field, the quality's going to go up. There's no way I can do 3,400 projects, and I wouldn't want to. There's diversity issues. There's fits. There's all sorts of different nuance that these vendors are making decisions on who's the best narrator. And I applaud that. If I miss out on an opportunity because there's someone else that's a better fit, that means that our audiences are going to get a better fit. And I have to trust that they're making those right decisions.
The question that's probably on most of our listeners' minds that have seen The Irishman, during that 3.5-hour audio description session, how many bathroom breaks did the describer get while recording
that? I can compare my experience working on some feature films that have been about that length. Most of the films are split into different reels, which can be anywhere from 12 to 20 minutes long. And for the most part, in a film, they break it up. So, whether there's 5 or 7 or 8 different reels, what usually happens in my experience is that we go through the full reel and then we'll go back and do pickups, anything that, sometimes when I'm reading, I sound like I've had 2 beers. Just because there's a word that gets slurred and the directors catch it and quality control catches it, so we can go back and do it. When it comes to those, we go through it. One of my favorite stories is in one of the reels, there was a person who had an open mouth and eyes wide, and they said she looked odd, AWED, but when I read it, it sounded like the homonym ODD, like she looked odd, like she was weird. So that's something that the director caught and reworded it on the fly and said, basically, let's change this. She had a look of awe, so that it became really clear it wasn't a look of odd. It was a look of awe to make that change. So, there is a lot of, especially in feature films, the time to go in and make those adjustments and make it as clear as possible for our audience. And that's something that, we experience as narrators and directors and engineers all together. And so, as those go on, the engineering is a marvelous feat. The people that are pushing the buttons on the screen to record us I can't imagine the focus and the attention that's required there. I really have a lot of respect for those guys and women that do that.
That makes me kind of curious. So do a lot of the directors and producers of the film or television shows, do they actually watch the final product of their film with your audio description?
Oh, that's a great question. When I said director, it is the director of the audio description. Okay. I wasn't clear about that. So as far as the actual film producers, the actual film directors, and even the post-production, I'm not sure how involved they are. Some of them are, some of them might not be. I know one representative from one of the movies did come in to just to see how things were being recorded from either curiosity or making sure that the story is being told in a way that it's best suited for the content. And, that separation, I've heard a lot of different opinions that it's something that separation is good because it's such a specific kind of work, the audio description, that it does take a very specific kind of training and being able to make sure that we're sharing the story visually in a way that works. But at the same time, there might be some elements of the story that the director or the cinematographer might find very important, that as this audio description becomes a part of and not in addition to the film, I believe there will be some overlap. And I think that overlap can only be helpful not only to our audiences, but also for the vision of the producers and the director. I went way off on that. Excuse me for that.
Roy, we have one last question. I know this isn't your area, but it does have to do with audio description, and some people are probably wondering this because, with Disney Plus going on, they're going to start pulling their stuff off Netflix. Tiffany Minaj has a question for you.
When I go to Disney Plus and the movie I'll provide is Saving Mr. Banks, in Disney Plus it is not audio described. However, if I go to Netflix and I go find that same movie, it is audio described. So I'm just wondering why one would have it and one would not. I've tried contacting Disney, but of course I get on hold forever and a day and then disconnected. Just curious why it would be in one platform but not the other, especially when Disney's going to be pulling all the material from Netflix at one point.
That's a great question, Tiffany. Thanks for asking. I think as a narrator, I'm limited in my exposure to some of the reasons that some of this makes it and some of it doesn't. I can only speculate, and this is just an opinion, that when it comes to the audio description, that is a separate thing that is negotiated with a very specific contract. And some of those contracts are limited as to where the audio description track, the audio track, can live and where it can go. There's one series that I'm working on. I'm on the main platform, but when it goes to any other platform, they had to get a whole separate audio description company and narrator to do it. I don't understand that. That almost feels like they're, in the same way that they likely wouldn't replace the actors in the film just because it's being viewed in a different format. It doesn't make sense from my perspective, but there's a reason for it. And I think a lot of those reasons of these strange experiences like you had, Tiffany, with not, hey, it was here on this platform, but now it's not on this, that there are a lot of restrictions. And I think that this is where it's really important that our audiences speak out and say, I call it pass through or carry through, whatever you want to say, from cinema to streaming. That sounds like a nice little alliteration there, but it's not. But to be able, you see a film in the theater with audio description, you want to be able to see it on whatever streaming service it ends up living a few years from now, and that carries through, it passes through. And it's really important that our audiences have that experience. Why wouldn't they? And I think there are reasons that it's not happening, and it kind of feels like the Wild West. And I'm sure it's disappointing when you knew it had it in one place, but it's not on another. And I think that as companies get together and figure out the flow, and 3,400 different projects, they're starting to figure out the patterns here just to make it easy. There is a checklist that they follow now. And maybe some of these historical titles outside of what you said Paramount and Disney are doing, Brian, as new titles come, maybe these other titles will be grandfathered in, who knows? But to be able to have all content live from one place to the other and just carry through. And that sounds like a really lofty vision at this point, but with all the content that's coming out, there's got to be people that are paying attention to that.
Yeah, we got a surprising email from a listener in India, Kishan, who's written into us a few times that he's able in India to get all of Netflix content with audio description, but found out from Amazon, even for their original content, I believe they don't have a global audio description policy, so all of the Amazon original content in India does not air with audio description, which was kind of surprising.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and I think that's another thing that if Amazon knew, well, obviously here's one example, that by reaching out to Amazon and saying, hey, we want access to this audio description. I do my best as a narrator to pass on information to the vendor who hires me. And I trust that the vendor passes that on to the people that are hiring them. These kinds of things are starting to really matter, that people are paying attention and they recognize the value. I'm sure that people who enjoy audio description are loyal when there's a good audio description service. As we said, some of these streaming services that are coming out are just really focused on that. And I can't help but think that specifically Amazon is very invested, specifically with some of their Echo devices and the accessibility that they've done on that side. That none of these companies are perfect. They're stumbling through. They're learning how to walk, so to speak. As they keep progressing, they're going to encounter stumbles like this. I find that Amazon specifically is very responsive when it comes to these things.
Yeah, Jeff, remind me next time I sit down with Jeff Bezos to mention about the audio description in India to him, okay?
Wait, as soon as you learn the Hindi language, there's another opportunity right there.
What a great opportunity.
Yeah. Serena.
Jeffrey.
How you doing?
I'm here.
I want to get your voice out here. Fire away.
I am just fascinated with just listening to Roy talk. Like it's amazing, all the advocacy that you do. And I see you all the time in the audio description group that you referenced, and lots of other people. I mean, I think even there was a rep that appeared to be from Disney asking what titles that the group members wanted to describe. So I think this is a really good transformative time for audio description. And I mean, even 5 years ago, there's no way we would have ever said that we would have 3,400 titles in the audio description project's website. And every day when they post the new titles for Amazon, it's always 75 more this week or 95 more this week. I mean, Amazon is really catching up.
Very
so
cool.
It's a real 2020 is going to be, I think, huge. And we'll have to see what these new streaming services do come March and May, I guess.
You know, I see a lot of social media out there. I saw Ira just did an article with you, Roy, and that turned out really good. And I saw another one where there was actual videos, Captivating magazine. That was really good because they were both visually impaired, and it's just neat to see so many different platforms picking up on the audio description as it's in its uptick right now, and you're doing such great advocacy work and getting your voice out there. I mean that in more than one way. You're speaking out and connecting people. I think it's really cool that in our community that you have taken that initiative to connect. So thank you for that. Thank you. Like as Brian said earlier, thank you very much.
No, thanks so much, Jeff. It really means a lot to me personally, professionally, in so many other ways that this work is seen the way that it can be as far as quality and excellence goes. I keep on going back to that. And that's really the core of where I'm headed in any conversation I have, that we do bring the best. I think our audiences deserve nothing less.
Roy, I read an article where a friend of yours had an accident, lost his eyesight, and you and him were able to connect up in a new way.
That was an experience that happened a few years ago where my friend he was a sighted friend, and he went completely blind. And in the course of his treatment, in between chemo and going to the hospital and such, that you can only talk about those kinds of things so much, that it was because of audio description that we were able to bridge the gap of being able to talk about our favorite show together. And I didn't do the audio description. It didn't matter. We were able to talk about the show. Oh, did you see that part? Oh my gosh, that was so great when that happened. That is a form of inclusion. That is a form of normalization that was essential for my relationship to my friend. And it was a way that accessibility does mean something very deeply personal to me, just because of that experience and many others that I've had. But that definitely was my own personal tipping point, personally. And then professionally, just being able to see the different feedback that we get from our audiences. You had mentioned the Facebook group, Serena. That has been a great way for me to pick up on how I can do an even better job as a narrator and find that sweet spot of being that voice that rides the emotional tone in a way that doesn't get in the way. And I take those comments incredibly seriously.
Is that the audio description community?
It's called Audio Description Discussion, and it's run by a gentleman named Kevin Thompson, is the administrator. It's on Facebook.
The coolest thing, I just read The Irishman, which we watched the day before Thanksgiving, 26 million views in the first week, Netflix claimed. And as you mentioned, Roy, the inclusion, I mean, that's what audio description leads to, is inclusion. People were talking about it we were at a big Thanksgiving dinner. And then a few nights later, I was still in Florida. My mom, we were like, I had set up Apple TV on her Fire Stick, and we were just looking at the main menu, and she saw the little promo there for Still in Hollywood. And I said, oh, that sounds familiar. What was that? Ends up, it was Tarantino's latest film. I'm like, oh, I really wanted to see it. And it wasn't available for rental yet. It was for download only. But I looked and right away, it said it had audio description. So I downloaded it. Unfortunately, the film was not very good. But the inclusion that you mentioned, that's something that it just feels, it makes you feel a part of everything. And that's something that really audio description, because films, television, while some people might say, oh, why are you wasting your time? That's part of society. That's a very large part of society. And for the blind, visually impaired community to be included in that is pretty spectacular, in my opinion.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Serena.
Jeffrey. I think you're just doing that just to get me to say Jeffrey.
Maybe. I don't know. I won't go there, though. Serena, you want to say a last thing?
I know Roy has some really cool smaller projects coming up that are to be determined and can't be revealed yet. But I will say I'm very excited about that.
I'm very excited too.
And that has a famous star in that too, I heard, but I won't tell.
Right? Yeah.
That's right.
I feel left out here. I don't know who it is, so I'll have to wait and see, and then be mistaken. Say, "Oh, there's Roy."
There
that
you
wasn't
go.
Roy.
As we're recording this, I have right now a total of 40 different projects that I've recorded that have not aired that I can't talk about.
That's incredible.
I don't like that you can't tell us. Like we don't even get any insider information.
Well, and that's a really good point. And I'm curious how you as an audience feel about that. Do you like waiting until the day of release to find out?
Well, the thing that I would like to see, and I'm sure Serena would too, is honestly, we just want to see. No, the thing I would like to get is when you see these trailers coming out, it would be neat if that AD was spoken, or that it may say AD on the TV screen, like coming soon, blah, blah, blah. Audio description included, a little tag.
Or just a special sound. It used to be, I don't know if you guys remember this, but when audio description first started coming to like ABC and it was super mainstream, there would be this cool little sound that they would play. And I was like, oh, sweet, let me turn it on. And then not anymore. Like if you don't know, you don't know.
What did it sound like?
It was like a little, almost like a whistle bird kind of combination thing.
What would you... That sounds fine.
It's just accessibility if you think about it. If you're visually impaired, how would you know that the AD logo, like it's so counterintuitive that they put an AD logo up there.
Good point.
Serena, if you have a TiVo, you just hit the C button and that turns on the audio description track, but we won't go into TiVo.
No. You're the only TiVo owner in the United States of America.
Oh, really? It's amazing. So I must spend $1 billion a year since they're $1 billion company.
The 70s are calling, Brian. They want their TiVo back.
Okay, Jeff.
You know where he's going to go with that because TiVo wasn't around in the 70s. Blah, blah, blah.
Roy, I want to thank you so much for taking the time and coming on, sharing everything, answering everyone's questions. It's really great to hear your voice on so many different shows, television shows, movie shows, commercials. It's just awesome. And even if you're not on it, we think it's you. So that must be a good thing.
Thanks so much for having me. It's really always a pleasure. It's great coming back.
You know what I just realized, Roy? You know how everyone calls tissues like Kleenex? You're like that with audio description. Everyone
the Kleenex
Roy.
Of audio description. I love it.
That was a really bad analogy.
I'm with you, though. I take it as a compliment.
How about chapstick to lip balm?
No, that's even worse.
We'll figure it out.
Well, Roy, the great thing is most of the people I watch audio description with, they don't know any better. So I just say, oh, I know who did that. That's Roy Samuelson. And they don't know any better. So you probably get a lot of credit for a lot of projects you've never done.
By default.
And when they start announcing it at the end of the movie, it's like audio description by Roy Samuelson.
It's literally the last thing ever in all like they make you read all those credits and then you're the last one that they say.
It's a start.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I like Lethal Weapon. They did it during the opening credits, which I thought was it's really one of the only shows where I've seen them mention the audio description during the opening credits. There's been very few that do that.
Most of Fox's shows will mention it during the opening credits. It's a Fox thing, I've noticed.
Huh.
Well, maybe we should march to Hollywood. All the blind people marching. Well, that might be difficult, but we could surely do it.
The equivalent of the march is a phone call or even an email sent out to the accessibility team.
There you go.
And Jeff, since we're blind, be specific. Is it Hollywood, Florida or Hollywood, California?
There you go.
Oh, goodness.
I'll text you.
Roy, thanks so much for doing this. As always, it's always great to hear what's going on in the audio description world out there.
Well, thanks, Brian. And you too, Jeff and Serena. Thank you, everybody. This has been
We
good.
appreciate that you're always so willing to put up with our antics and chat with us.
I can't tell you what a big smile I have, and I know it's going to last for another half hour.
That was Roy Samuelson, the king of audio description. Keep up the great work, Roy. We love having you on the show, and it's always such a treat to talk to you. It was a great thrill.
And thanks for everyone for sending in your questions. Chichow, Pete, Nick, and Tiffany. That was awesome.
And now, Mac dropped some updates along with iOS. Serena, I know you've had a busy work day and then you were on with us. Have you gotten a chance to install the latest iOS 13.3?
I was already running the public beta of it, so I think that the version that I have on my phone is the same that they just released.
I believe it is.
Yeah.
There's not a huge difference. It's a little frustrating because they say that they fixed the bug in regards to losing focus in the Mail app, but it's still happening to me. It'll jump back up to the top left when I'm just scrolling through trying to delete messages.
That's very frustrating.
Yeah, it is. So I just started using Gmail more because it's just a little bit more consistent.
I heard you can now monitor your kids' screen time.
Yeah.
Better.
Yeah. That's what it was big in the release notes and everything. And
huge.
Something tells me we're not going to see any of these voiceover fixes by the end of the year, which is quite frustrating. And some of these issues are not happening. They're device specific, potentially user specific due to some settings. The notification issue where it reads the notification twice. And one of the things I noticed, Jeff, the first 5 minutes, everything works fine. And then it just kind of all goes haywire. So I don't know if it's that machine learning that's affecting it.
It's kind of like speed dating. Those first 5 seconds, everything's just great. And then it all goes to heck.
Yeah.
I don't know where you're going with this, Jeff.
Brian mentioned machine learning before to me and stuff, and it makes you wonder, is machine learning overpowering the simplicity of just something working?
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought of that.
Yeah. And I still don't like that 10%, that little scroller that's in, for some reason,
The vertical scroll bar.
yeah, I just think that's causing issues and everything. I wish they'd get rid of that and everything. You're 10% through the page and everything. Yeah. Especially with voiceover where you could just quickly do a 3-finger flick up or 3-finger flick down to scroll through a page and everything. But I did not see any earth-shattering stuff, and maybe it's under the hood stuff and everything. They just keep coming out with update after update, but at least from a voiceover perspective, nothing seems to really get improved.
And Serena, just in case kids are listening out there, we warn you about Lizzo. Just don't play all the songs.
Most of them are okay.
Back to the iPhone. This last update, I didn't really notice anything too much different. I'm going to kick it around a little bit more. I went to my Mac, I updated it. All I really do is make sure the stuff I do for productivity works, and I'm still haven't done the update on my main machine, my iMac sitting right here.
Yeah, but you and I were going back and forth the other day, and I don't know what version of the beta you were running on the Mac. Actually, one thing that I think they may have fixed was that text being read to you when you were on a web page, and VoiceOver was focused on text.
Yeah, the cursor location.
Yeah, and it would say VoiceOver is focused on Farfanugan between the letters F and A, which was quite annoying, especially when you had your verbosity set to low. But Control in Mail in the latest update, when you hit Control...
Oh, wow.
What's that?
You're still trolling those Finnish websites, huh?
I'm a big fan of anything Finnish.
And you said F and A.
F and A?
Yeah.
What's wrong with F and A?
Now you still don't get it. You have your cold medicine.
What's that?
The way you're saying it, it sounds like you're swearing.
F and A? You guys are really PG. I didn't see anything. I didn't make any correlation there, but
FAQ is
frequently
asked questions.
Right. But the way Jaws did it, it was like, whoa.
I love when you get those screen reader weirdisms and everything. When instead of reading US, us, I'm like, contact US. And I'm like, what? Contact US? So I was like, oh yeah,
US
contact
and
us. Yeah. It's like,
well, you know how you can type in a word and have it say something differently because it just roaches it? My ex-wife's name was Juliana. So I had it say Wicked Witch, okay?
You are horrible, Jeff.
I was in college and I was reading this book and the name of the person in the book was Juliana. So you know how you're just kind of listening and not paying attention? All of a sudden it goes, and Wicked Witch, blah, 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 blah.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
That's funny.
I went back and spilled it out.
You're like, does it really say that? Did you forget that you had done that?
Yeah, I forgot all about it.
That's rude.
You're horrible.
I like when you type like an address and it's like 11050 Strathmore and you're like drive and you write DR and then it reads it 11050 Strathmore Doctor.
Yeah, I live on Dr. Drive.
Anyway, it's technology. It's not meant to be perfect. It's meant to, as I'm proof, make you pull your hair out. It'd just be nice. It'd be nice. I had a full head of hair before I got my first iOS or Mac computer. And now
Jeff is like giddy over there.
His TiVo's running better than his Mac and his Apple right now.
And that's not supposed to be the way things work. When my TiVo's giving me less angst than my Apple devices, it's not a good world. Cats and dogs living together.
The word vexed comes to mind sometimes. Your attitude lately about these Apple products.
Yeah.
This series of Apple updates has got to be the worst in history.
So you're saying they're vexing?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Dude, you're not going to believe this. So I have an earbud in, and it just spoke to me with Siri saying, that's upsetting. I'm sorry to hear that you feel that way.
What are you doing over there?
I have no idea, but Siri just said to me, it heard us talking about Apple.
Because she's mad because we're not talking nicely about her. Who did you just text?
I didn't do anything. I'm just sitting here. It's in my ear, the earbud. It was very creepy. So they're obviously listening.
Oh, that's super creepy.
Obviously, privacy concerns are not big. I have no idea why. I didn't even say, hey, S lady. And she just, she was listening to us talking negatively about her Apple.
Oh, wow. Target's watching where you are. The Siri is now listening in all the time. I think the new Portal is like the safest thing today.
Safest. And God knows what the A lady's up to.
I think she's got a brain injury or something. She is not smart right now.
No, I kept trying to play NFL games on it the other day, and it's like, I'm sorry, I'm not capable of that. I'm like, you were 2 minutes ago flipping from one game to another. And I said, play the Washington Redskins on Sirius XM. And she's like, I'm sorry, but I can't do that. I was like, now they're getting politically correct about the name of the team and everything. It was really bizarre how they wouldn't, either that or they knew the Redskins were so terrible, it just didn't want to put it on. Well, anyway, Serena, we've got more holidays coming up fairly soon. So any animals in there, Colorado, being smoked for those holidays too?
Maybe a chicken.
What about a bird?
A yellow bird?
No, a
big
very small
bird.
chicken.
You should smoke a big bird for Christmas.
I think you should do it because I heard Big Bird is being cremated, so it seems fitting.
Oh, it took you guys this long to make it. Oh, you guys
I'll
are
take
so
a
weak.
leg.
You're gonna destroy every young child's life right now. But seriously, on a serious note, my parents are actually coming to visit for about a week for the Christmas, and
Is that a good thing?
yeah, of course they're gonna see their grandson. And
Some
spend time
families
with
are
us.
weird, and that's,
my
you know.
goodness.
Is your sister coming too?
No, she was gonna come for Thanksgiving, but she was like, but my boyfriend has to work the day before and the day after, so I'll just come visit you and leave him there. And I was like, no, you can't do that. That's not nice.
Wow.
So my parents actually went out and visited her.
I could be her escort to your party.
Oh, goodness. Mm-mm.
Brian, you never get invited back.
I love my sister.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just
I don't
not
even know her
nice.
and I like her better than, yeah, I wouldn't do that to anybody.
So are they there for Christmas and New Year's and Hanukkah?
What was that?
Will your family be there for all the holidays or just a few?
Did you ask if they were going to be here for Hanukkah?
I asked, I didn't want to just be selective, so I said, will your family be there for Christmas, New Year's, and Hanukkah?
They'll
I was
be
trying
here
to be inclusive.
for Christmas.
Okay, so you're kicking them out before New Year's?
They picked the dates.
No worry. We don't need to make it awkward. No, that's very nice. And I guess, is Trey the only grandkid?
He is on my side of the family, yes. So he's very spoiled.
Okay, well, that's cool. I'm sure they'll love to see their grandchild and everything. Well, we hope you have a wonderful, safe holiday. And Mr. Target, what do you have going on up there in the Twin Cities for the holidays?
Well, and we're going to be going over to my sister's. It's always a good time over there. You guys ever play the saran wrap game where you make a big ball and there's gifts? As you roll this into a big giant size of a basketball, there's probably $200-300 worth of gifts that are like rolled up into it. It's just interesting because as you peel it, something will fall out and that's what you get. It's really kind of fun. We all chip in to do this thing, and
Is that like a potluck Christmas?
It's kind of that.
It's kind of like a white elephant in a way too. Like we've never done it before, but I've definitely heard of it.
What if you get something you don't want? Can you give it back?
Who cares? It's free. I mean, it's like our podcast to our listeners. It's free.
The gift that keeps on giving is what you're saying.
Yeah, because we have nothing else to do. No, yeah, we're going to go to my sister's, and then my daughter's coming up with the grandkids and stuff, and we'll do this side of the family. You know, we got that side, this side, and everything. So it's always a good time of the season because, you know, I love it.
That's great to hear.
And Brian, what do you got planned?
Well, we're actually all getting together in the coldest part of the country, South Florida. It's going to be interesting. I'll see my nieces, my sister, brother-in-law, mom and dad, and, you know, we're dealing with some health issues, so we don't know how many more years we'll get to do this, so it'll be nice to get the whole family together, and I'll be there for Hanukkah and Christmas, and then fly it up to my good buddies and spend time at his family's house for New Year's Eve, as they have a nice big New Year's Eve party that should be interesting, and then eventually get on the train and head on back here to NYC right after the New Year. So,
Do any of you go caroling?
No.
No,
Never.
it's not 1957, Jeff.
And I get creeped out when people carol at my front door.
Is it worse as clowns coming up to you and saying hi or something?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would put it probably, I don't know which one's worse. They're pretty equal, you know, clowns coming up to you and carolers. Nowadays, though, can you trust carolers coming up that they wouldn't want to mug you or something?
Nobody would answer their door anyways. We all have like Ring and Nest and...
Oh, it's those darn carolers
Yeah,
again.
right.
Quick, turn the lights off. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Hey, lady, shut the lights off. Nobody's home.
Caroler alert. Caroler alert.
This is my favorite time of the year, though, because we got all the great college football bowl games. Only thing is, I'm going to be at my buddy's house, so that means I'm going to have to watch a lot of them on TV rather than listen to them on the radio like I like.
You know, if I lived so close to Sleepy Hollow, that'd be a nice little spot to go caroling.
with a headless horseman there. Yeah, it's a half hour, 26.8 miles from my current location.
In New York, a half hour? Yeah, right. In New York, 26 miles is about, what, 3 days?
No, you got to remember, though, it's once you get outside the city and everything, it's not so bad. Yeah, it'll probably take 45 minutes to an hour. So, hold on. Hey, Google, how long will it take me to get to Sleepy Hollow, New York?
We're still recording.
He's just playing with his smart devices.
38 minutes with light traffic, according to the G Lady.
You still have to close out the show, Mr. Fisher.
Are you alone a lot, Brian? Do you have a concept of time?
I am so glad to be wrapping this show up so Jeff Thompson could go to bed and be a curmudgeon.
Just like a present, Brian. Wrap it up.
Wrap it up. I like that.
Oh my God, you can't leave that in there.
Before you say goodbye, could you wrap it up, please?
Thank you. That was very polite. This has been That Blind Tech Show with Serena Gilbert.
I'm leaving it.
Brian Fischler and some guy up there in Target Land, Jeff Thompson.
He forgot to take his meds. We apologize.
Ritalin. Remember, Brian,
I feel
fill
good.
the Ritalin prescription for Jeff before next show. That's why we can't get through the close. You can reach us at
clothes?
at gmail.com.
Did he say
or on
he
the
can't get through
Twitterverse
my clothes?
at Blind Tech Show. Or on the Facebook group, and a lot of you have been joining us there. We
Just
love
ask,
seeing you
don't
there.
grab.
Just search on Facebook, That Blind Tech Show, and for now, we are out. Do I have to do that again?
No, he'll figure it out because it's on 3 different tracks. But that was hilarious.
I was just ignoring it.
First of all, he was like, "Did you say that you're gonna grab my clothes?"
Yeah, he said.
And then he
said it
was
was
like, "Just ask, don't grab."
Amateurs. I'm working with amateurs.
I thought it was
Oh, it was
hilarious.
so funny. And he was so professional, and we're over here like.
I may have snorted loud once. I was just going. I was like, I'm just going to get through
And
this.
then did you hear Brian? He was like, "Remind me to tell Jeff to fill his Ritalin prescription."
Yes, I heard that.
I was just like, get through it.
You're gonna have to find a way to leave that stuff in still.
A big shout out to Chi Chow for his beautiful music. You can follow Chi Chow on Twitter at El Chi Chow. Chi Chow. Chi Chow.
When we share
what we see
through each other's eyes, we can then begin to bridge the gap between
the limited expectations
and the
reality of blind abilities.
The realities of blind
abilities.
For more podcasts with a blindness perspective, check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com, on Twitter at blindabilities. Download our app from the App Store, blindabilities, that's 2 words, or send us an email at info@blindabilities.com. Thanks for listening.